Welcome everybody. First I want to start out with just a bit of gratitude, and this is a joyful place for us all to be, and I want to thank you all who showed up for this event, who donated generously, who's making a reality of helping people who need joy right now, looking for justice a reality. So thank you so much for participating and being part of this great night. Okay, I am so thrilled. Today is the first day of spring colors, happy dance. So excited that we're starting this out on a beautiful spring day. It's also National Plant a Seed Day. So today I was out there planting my carrots and my radishes and beets and turnips because we can do our own part where we live to foster sustainability by planting our own garden. So I encourage you to all do that because that's fun. That's the best way to get good, clean, and fair food is just go outside, plant your own, and support our local farmers, which we are doing here tonight. So I want to welcome you to this beautiful kitchen with these lovely, great people, Lauren Chattman and Jack Bishop. First of all, thank you so much for saying yes immediately.
Of course.
We really appreciate it. They are totally a part of our slow food family. Jack and Lauren have done so much. Jack is president, founder, what do we call it, of America's Test Kitchen?
Chief Creative Officer.
Chief Creative Officer of American Test Kitchen. I don't know about you, but I am a big foodie online person. I get your emails all the time. I learn so much. There's always something that I didn't know. I love to cook, and I always learn things. So thank you for all that. Lauren is a prolific cookbook author, over 20 cookbooks. I'm going to say over 20 cookbooks because that's what I read on the web. So we don't know, but we're believing it's true. And looking forward to a really fun night of cooking. As an aside, Lauren is also one of our Flour Power home bakers. So Flour Power started a year ago in response to the pandemic, and where people were really relying heavily, as they still are, on getting their food sourced from food pantries. And you go to a food pantry and you get staples, and sometimes you get produce, but never ever is there a home-baked bread. And if you ask me, nothing smells like love or spells love like a home-baked bread. So we started this project, Flour Power. It's the yeast you can do. I know you're all home laughing right now. Thank you. And we have a whole little army of home bakers who every other week bake through a recipe that we have, 4 loaves, keep one, and we donate it. Right now we're donating it to the North Fork Spanish Apostolate, and we will be increasing our reach. Just tell us a little bit about what it means to you to be a Flour Power baker.
You know, when I first started following Slow Food on Instagram, I saw one of your messages about Flour Power, and because I'm a baker, I thought, this would be the perfect way for me to help, for me to make a small contribution. I got the recipe from you. The recipe is super simple. You don't have to be an experienced baker. It's delicious. It's a long keeping bread. So if you bake yours and you keep it around for a while, you can enjoy it all week. And it's just a wonderful feeling to bake your breads, pack them up in their little slow food bags, bring them over to the collection box, and know that somebody will be enjoying them later that night or for the rest of the week. So
thank you.
I highly recommend it if you're at all interested in bread baking. It's a great way to start or continue.
And if you know nothing about bread baking, on our website, slowfoodiesden.org, we have videos that could take you through the process. So I encourage you all to give it a try. Everybody, I think, they talk about giving and getting, and we give the breads, but we get so much by knowing that we're making a difference and getting our hands dirty in the dough. So
it's a great feeling.
So I do appreciate it. Now, I have to tell you, for those of you who may know me, you know my husband and I have been married forever, and we met in high school, but these two know each other from elementary school.
That's right.
So they have that over on us. I was a little jealous, but what a wonderful family and children and marriage and working together and cooking together. So there's a lovely menu plan for us tonight. Homemade pasta with kale pesto. We just want to talk about supporting our local farmers. We got the kale pesto, we got the kale from one of our local farmers, Sang Lee. Sang Lee is a Snail of Approval Award winner, and that's a project that we do, that we bestow a Snail of Approval on restaurants, on farms that practice good, clean, and fair values. So we were happy to use their kale. Eggs from the Happy Herbalistas farm and garden. That's me, by the way. So we have local eggs, and of course, what dinner would be incomplete without dessert, if you ask me, and especially chocolate. So we're going to end with a delicious pot of crème. So I am very excited. These recipes are from cookbook. Hold up the cookbook. From their new cookbook, America's Test Kitchen, the new cooking school cookbook that was just recently published. Lucky for you, we are going to have two winners, because we got such a great response, at the end of this Zoom event that will be raffling off 2 autographed books. So we're very excited. So right now, I am going to turn this over to Lauren, who's going to take us through what it means to make fresh pasta. So,
well, fresh pasta is a very special recipe for us because before we were professionals, we were making pasta together. Starting when you learned first when you were about 20?
The first time we lived together was actually in Italy when Lauren was studying junior year abroad, and I crashed her junior year abroad. Her roommates, I think at first were like, "Really? Your boyfriend has shown up?"
But then he started taking cooking classes.
That's a plus in a boyfriend.
And we were really into food, and when Jack made pasta at first, he did everything by hand. Tonight I'm going to make the dough in the food processor because not because I'm in a rush, but because I'm a little older, a little arthritic, don't have a lot of upper body strength.
I hear you.
So this will take about 30 seconds in here, and I'll show you how it's done. I'm going to use a cup of all-purpose flour. We used to make this recipe with all-purpose flour, but recently we changed so that we're using half semolina flour. We were in Italy in October, and I'm just going to whiz this around for a little while. And we took a pasta making class from a chef there who recommended it. We said, how do you get your pasta so yellow? And you can see the beautiful golden color of that flour. And there are other reasons too, which we'll explain in a little while. This recipe couldn't be simpler, especially if you're making it in a food processor. I'm going to put in 3 eggs, so it's 2 cups of flour and 3 eggs. Now when I made this with all-purpose flour and large eggs from the supermarket, it always came out perfect every time. Now with the semolina flour, it's a little more absorbent sometimes. I'm not sure what size your eggs are.
I'm not either.
So, maybe they're bigger than the eggs I usually use. Maybe they're smaller, so we're going to have to see.
Okay.
I'm going to give it about 30 seconds. If it doesn't come together into a ball, which it looks like it's coming together, what do you think? Should I add a little?
Yeah, I would say, what do you think? Half
water?
a teaspoon of water. And this part of the process, when you do it on the counter, you put the flour, on the counter and make a well, and then put the eggs in.
Correct.
And it's like, it takes 20 minutes at least.
And it makes a real mess. Not that you'll see, I'll have a chance to knead it a little bit. Not that it's neat, but it's a little bit. I think it's getting stuck on let me loosen it from this blade and give it, it feels good. Yeah, I think your eggs are a little bit larger than large. Maybe they're extra large. I don't think they're jumbo, but let's see.
Oh, it's coming together nice.
It's coming together. And it doesn't have to come together completely into a ball, because to really feel like you're in touch with the pasta, it's nice to knead it by hand for a minute or two.
So you still do that? You put it on the counter?
I do. I get it on the counter. I don't usually add extra flour on the counter, and it's can see this is about, what does this make, about a pound of pasta?
Yeah, this is, it will make exactly 1 pound of fresh pasta. So, for all those recipes that you have where it's calling for that, it doesn't really double all that well. I think if you want to double it, you should actually just keep the
Do 2 batches.
Well,
Do
unless
2
you
batches
have a
in the food
gigantic food
Yeah.
processor. So you just see that this batch that I'm making, I made a batch earlier today that was much more dry than this
Yeah.
is. This is nice and moist.
Get that out of your way, sweetie.
And again, if it's too sticky, if you feel like your hands are sticking to it or if it's sticking to the counter, you can knead a little bit more flour in, but I don't think we're going to have to do that. I would say you do this for 1 minute, 2 minutes tops. And you can see, I'll show you when I turn it over, it's going to be nice and smooth. A nice smooth
I love the
ball.
color.
Isn't it nice?
It
I
is.
know. And I don't know, you know what, I didn't pay too close attention to the yolks in your eggs.
My
Are
yolks-
they
my
nice
yolks
and orange
they
and
are.
beautiful? That's another nice thing about using local eggs. They're
Yeah.
always so vibrantly colored that they give the pasta a very nice color.
And Lauren's doing this technique where you see where it's like she's twisting, and then it's really like it's not your hand; it's really your palm.
If you're
the
a
heel of your
baker,
hand.
if you're a baker, this is one way of kneading dough, but any kneading technique will work. It's just this is building up the gluten in the dough so that the pasta has some strength and doesn't fall apart when you cook it. So I think
Want some plastic?
for our purposes, that should be fine. You can see how nice and smooth it is. And once it's kneaded, you're gonna get me a piece of plastic. It's important to let it rest for about at least 15 minutes up to...
And you want to rest it inside the plastic.
Right, because it will dry out.
That's why you put it in the plastic.
It's like it finishes hydrating.
Sure, that makes sense.
I think you could do it in a really tightly round towel, but you really want the moisture to sort of hydrate the flour,
Gotcha.
right?
The gluten strands will strengthen as the dough sits, and that will make the pasta nice and stretchy, extensible. So instead of just waiting around for 15 minutes.
We appreciate that.
I have a piece from this morning that I can show you. And again, I'm not going to roll this out by hand. I could. We did that in Italy, and it takes more
It's a lot of strength.
than I have. Jack, in fact, it was funny because I pride myself on making really nice, delicate pasta in this machine, but when Jack and I made our batches of pasta side by side, and where were we, outside of Torino, yours were much more delicate than mine because you were able to put so much more muscle into it than I was.
And actually, if you are going to use a rolling pin, I think you want even maybe a richer dough, a little bit more egg, so that it's a little bit more elastic, which... Like here, you don't really want it sticking, but I think if you were trying to do this with a rolling pin, this dough would be tough, and I might want another egg in it to be able to make it a little easier to roll out.
I'm going to put it through the machine. Let me put it on. This machine has 7 settings, so I'm going to put it on the first one. It was really interesting when we took this pasta class. The teacher was saying that she thinks it's much better to roll out your pasta by hand because the rolling pin gives the pasta a rougher texture than this machine, which she said makes the pasta very slippery, and so the rougher texture exactly so that the sauce adheres, and that's fine if again you have the strength. But one of the reasons that I really love this semolina flour is because if you feel it, if you put your hand into it, you can feel it's a little bit gritty.
A little gritty.
So that I think is a little bit of a
Not
solution.
as coarse as cornmeal, but there's a little grit to it.
No, and there are a couple of kinds of semolina flour. Is that right? This is the finely ground semolina that you. I haven't quite gotten to the point where I'm using all semolina flour in my pasta, but
No, that looks so beautiful, sweetie.
yeah, this in this machine, I think my mom gave this machine to you when you came home from Italy 30 years ago. So it's
There are 2 brands, the Atlas and the Imperia. They both work great. This happens to be the Atlas, which is this is, what most Italian homes would have. Yeah, there may be a grandma somewhere who's doing the whole rolling pin thing, but more often than not, they're using one of these, clamps under the counter, and it's just super easy.
So have you ever tried the pasta attachment for the KitchenAid, or no?
We have not. I love the KitchenAid for making bread. I could not live without it, but no, I haven't.
Okay.
And I think this
has got a more organic feel to it as well.
There's something very.
I've done both.
You love both?
I've done both, yes, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I have two questions that might be relevant. Sure. One is, as you're rolling the pasta through, there's different levels. There's different settings. So if you could explain to everyone why you use those settings, and then after that, if you can just repeat the recipe one more time.
And we are going to be having the recipe available to everyone online, correct? And on our website, we will post.
Yes, we should have it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine. Sure.
The recipe is super simple, easy to remember. I didn't even have to consult it.
It was very easy. I even remember.
2 cups of flour and 3 large eggs. Now, depending on how absorbent your flour is and really how large your eggs are, you might need to add a little extra water or a little extra flour into the food processor, but I think
you can use regular AP all-purpose flour.
Okay.
I mean, Lauren was using half of this beautiful Italian, durum wheat semolina flour, along with half. I think we're using King Arthur.
King Arthur organic all-purpose flour. Yes.
But you can use, and I would say, as Lauren said, until we went to Italy last time in October, we were always making it for 35 years. We were making it with AP flour, and
it comes out great.
It comes out great.
It really does. I feel like I can detect the difference in the texture, but if you can only get all-purpose flour. Now this machine has 7 settings. Is that true of all pasta machines? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is you start on the widest one. In this case, it's 1, and either you go to the last or the next to last.
So that's just making the opening where you put the pasta in smaller to make it thinner as it comes out.
There are
you can see it,
rollers,
yes.
and they get closer and closer together. Now, I like, we're making noodles. I like to always put the pasta through the thinnest, through the highest setting. Now, our teacher in Italy said that she prefers, when you're doing longer strings of pasta, to go maybe only up to number 6, that the thinnest setting is really for making stuffed pastas, when you want something very, very delicate.
But I think the other way to also sort of see this, and this is, I learned this in 1983 when we were living together in Florence, is that you really should be able to see the outline of your hand kind of through the dough. And so, and this, especially if you're doing this with a rolling pin,
that's very really difficult to get it that thin.
But you really should be able to see, your fingers through there.
I mean, if you're a pasta granny and you've been doing it your entire life, yes. But
you have to see this. This is so beautiful. Oh my God!
So now I'm gonna put one of these through the machine to make and it's like I was just saying.
I was wondering. I'm like, oh my gosh, they have to cut it, but no, it doesn't.
Well, we did that in Italy, but this is so therapeutic and fun to me to see, like, from 2 cups of flour and 3 eggs, and in how many minutes? I don't think it's even been 10 minutes.
No. And you don't put any salt in your dough?
No,
just wondering.
Some people do, but I think most people don't.
I've never made pasta.
Once I run all of this through the machine, I'm gonna take some time while Jack is cooking our dessert to separate the strands, because you don't want them to stick together. When they come right out of the machine, they're a little bit moist. They'll dry out as time goes by, but you don't want them to stick together. So I'm gonna run them all through the machine, then I'm gonna separate. Oh, you wanna work on separating those?
And I think it's more important to cook the pasta in really heavily salted water. I mean, most people don't put enough salt in because they're afraid.
I've heard that.
And I will tell you, we've done the lab tests at America's Test Kitchen, and if you use 4 quarts of raw water and 1 tablespoon of salt,
really,
the amount of salt that gets absorbed by the pasta is like the equivalent of between an eighth and a quarter of a teaspoon. And so it's like, it seems like, oh, I'm putting a tablespoon of salt into the cooking water.
Most of that's going down
It's going down the drain. And so the way to season it is really that way, not trying to add salt to dough, because the salt will also will inhibit the way the gluten forms a little bit, and so since you're cooking this in salted water, it doesn't need the salt in the dough. It's just going to make things a little bit more challenging.
Good to know. So I think now, are we going over to Jack for our pesto?
So. I think I'm going to.
What do we?
No, we're going to do the dessert.
We're going to start with the pot of crème.
Yeah.
We're going to get that going, and then
Yes.
we'll get back to the pesto.
We are doing that now.
I'm going to finish up this now and separate this while you're. Let me know if you need help.
Yeah, no, I'm good. So I'm making. When it comes to dessert, there's two schools: chocolate or fruit. That's it.
That's it. That is it. Chocolate or fruit.
I'm chocolate.
I'm chocolate.
I'm always chocolate.
I'm chocolate. It's also, this isn't really prime fruit season.
Very true.
So we decided to do chocolate, and I'm demoing my favorite chocolate recipe, which is a chocolate pot de crème. And what I love about this recipe is it sounds really fancy. It's really just chocolate pudding, but it's really rich because, of course, it's French, and we've kind of reimagined this. This is an America's Test Kitchen recipe, and traditionally pot de crème is often made in a water bath in the oven. And you've got the ramekins, and it's just really complicated. And so this is super simple. It's a stovetop recipe.
And it's in the new it's in their new cookbook.
Yeah, it's in the new cookbook. Everything we're making tonight is in the Cooking School cookbook. So I'm actually scaling the recipe. So the recipe in the book calls for 8 servings. I'm gonna make 4 tonight.
You know what,
Sorry, guys. I don't know how much. We've already got 4 already made. So
we have 4 already made, which I'm gonna take out of the refrigerator.
Don't panic.
now.
Everyone here is going to get a pot of crème.
What do you do? I'm not ready.
Everyone's gonna get some.
So the recipe calls for 5 tablespoons of sugar. I've cut that in half, and a pinch of salt, throwing that in there. And then it calls for 5 yolks. And so I'm going to use 3 because I'm not going to try to cut one of the yolks in half in order to half the recipe. And I often, when we're just entertaining for 4 people, I cut this recipe in half, and it works totally fine. Your eggs are so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I'll tell the hens you said that.
I should have thought about this though. It is much easier to separate eggs if they're cold.
Oh.
And so you notice there, I know that's my fault because I know that, and I didn't do the best job of separating that egg. It'll be fine if there's a little bit of white in there. But if you are trying to separate a lot of eggs, it is really a lot easier. Although that one I did a better job on. The yolk is just a little bit firmer if it's cold. And so it's less likely to try to start falling apart while you're...
Great cooking tips we're getting here tonight, everybody.
So I'm separating my yolks. Ooh, that was manhandling. Jeez.
Just remember the shells aren't supposed to go in.
No, I'm saving it because look, I'm going to also just use my hands, that's a totally fine way. Oh, look at that, that's so beautiful.
Very nice.
Just do a quick rinse.
Me too.
So then, one of the things that we do at work is we test gadgets, and oh my god, we have a favorite minis.
I was making fun of him today. I
Well,
was like,
look-
"That's
look-
the one you're gonna use."
Yeah, it's from we tested like a dozen of these, and this is our favorite.
The teeny tiny one.
Because of course, once we recommend something at work, I go buy it. So I'm combining. I basically want to just get everything nice and combined, and then I'm going to add the dairy. And the dairy is a mixture of the full recipe that serves 8 is 1.5 cups of heavy cream and 3/4 of a cup of half and half. Basically, if it was 100% heavy cream, it would just be too rich. And so we're cutting the heavy cream with a little bit of half and half. If you can call that lightening
I was
up.
about to say, I'm keeping it to myself. I'm okay. Lighten it up.
Penny's like, oh yeah, we really lightened up the recipe.
Everything is relative.
All right. And then we are, as I said, this is a stovetop custard. So I basically, I'm making crème anglaise at this point. And I'm
Do you want to tell everybody what crème anglaise is?
So crème anglaise is just, custard. It's the base for ice cream. It's the vanilla custard that gets served alongside a lot of desserts in a French restaurant. And in this case, it's the basis for, chocolate pot de crème is basically crème anglaise, vanilla custard with chocolate in it. And that's really all it is. So the key here is that whenever you're making, whether we're making a base for vanilla ice cream or just making crème anglaise or here, is that we want to cook this to about 175 to 180 degrees. So we want to get it to the point, in an old-fashioned recipe, it would say till you can coat the back of a spoon and then draw, a line through it.
Okay.
That still works. I mean, that's perfectly fine, especially if you're,
You don't have a thermometer.
Lauren would be fine doing that. I mean, you notice we're doing a little role reversal here, and I'm making dessert, and I'm really not that good at making dessert.
No, you've made this plenty of times, and you are good, but it's true. I'm not as attached to my instant read thermometer as Jack is.
So this is the Rolls Royce.
I do that for my bread. I do.
I mean, it's super cool. It comes in like 50 colors. It's from a company called Thermapen. When you start work, you were assigned your own Thermapen at work. You get your own Thermapen, and you can see what it then gives you a readout, and it will automatically shut off. So I want to just sort of see just quickly where we are. We are nowhere near where we want to be. We're around 100 at this point. So I'm going to put the heat a little higher here. You want it over medium-low. I mean, it's going to take 5 to 12 minutes, depending on how good your pot is, how much heat you're using. But what I find is it'll be like right now it's like at 100, 105. It's got to get up to the 175 or to 180. But then, like within 10 seconds, it's like you have scrambled eggs.
At what temperature? Right. At what temperature does it start to curdle?
At basically 185 degrees, you start to curdle it, and so you really want to make sure that you're stirring, especially in those later stages. You're also looking for visuals. So right now, it feels like it's basically the consistency of heavy cream. It's not a sauce.
Still pretty Still pretty liquidy.
It's pretty liquidy,
Correct.
and that what we're really doing is unlocking the thickening power of the yolks, right? And because the yolks, as well as the chocolate, are the thing that's going to basically create the body.
The chocolate is going to make it set up very nicely. I mean, that's a lot of chocolate.
Yeah. So maybe we should talk about chocolate. So a couple of tricks here. I'm going to use this to pour it into the serving. So why put it in a bowl if I could put it in a measuring cup? Because I'm not going to.
That was my idea yesterday. Because Jack takes a bowl and he's like trying to pour it into these little cups and it's splashing all over the place.
You know what? I'm still 50 years later and I'm learning things from my wife.
Well, isn't this International Women's Month? I'm just saying. So
I'm a big fan of Pyrex measuring cups.
And this is here because even if you stir vigilantly around the edges, especially, which is where it's, and you'll notice that I'm trying when I stir to really get into like what we call like at the corners of the pot. You're going to get little teeny pieces of just a little bit of curdled egg. That's fine because we're going to pour the custard through this. And so that any little bits of coagulated egg. It's really coagulated, not curdled egg, but coagulated egg. Will end up because we want a flawless texture. I mean, that's,
of course.
That's
for our slow food community out here, absolutely.
That's right.
We need a flawless
nothing
texture.
But flawless.
Correct.
So I'm at 156, 157. So we're getting there.
Yeah.
When you get close, you may want to, like, if you were on the stovetop, I'm using a little portable induction burner here. Just lower it a little bit so that you're, creeping up to the finish line rather than racing across the finish line. And you can see, it's really starting to thicken up. You want to talk a little about chocolates, maybe?
I don't know what to say. We're using, America's Test Kitchen tried this recipe with both 60% and 70%. And I know a lot of people who are like chocolate fanatics or connoisseurs think that the higher percentage of cocoa solids, is that what it is?
Yeah.
The better. But in this case, they found that 70% was just a little too intense.
A little too bitter.
Yeah, a little too intense.
They also set up more because there's more, there's starches in the chocolate, and so there's more. If there's more cocoa solids, there's more starches. which means that you kind of got a fudgier texture to the point where it was, it was almost like spackle. And
well, like frosting.
I guess I like my spackle that tastes like chocolate. I'm just saying, but
frosting
okay.
texture rather than a sort of silky.
Yeah.
so
Understood.
so if you want to use 70%, you actually reduce the amount of chocolate.
And the recipe in the book will instruct you if you can. Today at King Cullen and Cutchug, they only had 70%, but Jack went to
I went to Greenport to the
Greenport,
IGA.
to the IGA, and they are heroes.
Yeah,
came through with the 60%.
And really, the labels bittersweet, semi-sweet, they're really, those are not helpful. It's really the percentage of cacao, and what that means is that this is basically 40% sugar and 60% chocolate, as opposed to a 70% where it's 30% sugar and 70% chocolate, which is great.
Another tip I never knew that.
One of the things that we're always doing, both at home and certainly at work, is because Lauren has developed tens of thousands of recipes, is understanding that they don't know.
We keep building you up with this huge number.
All right, thousands.
Thousands.
Well, you know what? Recipes work differently with different ingredients,
Yeah,
right? And that's, and I think a lot of people don't really sometimes think, oh, chocolate is chocolate, right? And it's like this recipe would be very different with Hershey's milk chocolate, for instance. I mean, it'd be way too sweet. It also would set up differently. All right, I think we're getting there. Yeah, I mean, we're so I'm going to turn this off and strain this through. So I'm just going to pour my custard through. We'll see. I get a little check on my work because we'll see what.
See how much egg.
How much coagulation.
See, and this is what you can sort of see here that there are a couple of little bits.
Oh,
I mean,
pretty good.
this is but better in the strainer than in my crème. Now we're going to allow basically the heat there to dissolve, to melt the chocolate. So that was 10 ounces of bittersweet. We cut the recipe in half, so if it looked less, that's because there was secret ingredient.
You're gonna mocha it up?
Yeah.
This is really interesting, and it's something a tip that I have used for years, to add a little bit of espresso powder to a brownies, to cookies.
I do as well.
It's not going to taste like coffee.
Right. So this is half. Is this a quarter teaspoon?
It cut in half. Yes.
Cut in half. So
Wow.
it's just so.
It's a tiny amount
We
of espresso
we put this
powder.
in all of the chocolate recipes, brownies, cupcakes. You do not at this level. So this is just instant espresso powder. It's basically, think of this as like, vanilla enhances flavors, and we're going to add some vanilla, but instant espresso powder. You could use brewed coffee, a tablespoon of brewed coffee if you wanted to. It would do the same thing. And then of course we're going to add vanilla because of course, I think of these as chocolate's best friends.
Talk about the quantity.
Yeah, so I'm
Vanilla.
adding a teaspoon and a half, or it would be a tablespoon for 8 portions, so it's a lot of vanilla. Most people don't use enough vanilla. I mean, the same way they don't.
I think that's true.
Use
more vanilla.
Use more
Another
vanilla.
handy tip today.
It makes things more delicious.
Well, and especially when you're stirring it into something hot or baking with it, because a lot of the flavor of the vanilla will bake off or cook off. In this case, it's going into hot liquid, and you're going to lose some of that vanilla aroma and flavor. So you have to add a lot to get the impact that you want.
Now the recipe is suggesting that we wait 5 minutes, but I'm going to cheat.
Or do we just want to go on to pesto
I'm going
and
to see
come
where
back?
we are. I mean, basically, once the chocolate starts to melt, you can then stir it all together.
Did you put salt in there? Did I miss that?
I put salt into the custard. So the custard is sugar and salt, the egg yolks, the heavy cream, and the half and half. And then we've added that, poured that right in with the chopped chocolate. And the finer you chop the chocolate, the faster it's going to melt.
Makes sense.
So and then we've goosed it up with the vanilla and a little bit of the reconstituted espresso powder, and we are good to go.
This
We are good to go, and then we're gonna move on to pesto.
Question.
Question, go ahead, Laura.
I have a question for you. So let's just say you don't have any vanilla extract, but you happen to have vanilla beans. Two things, would poaching, I can use the word poaching the vanilla bean in liquid or scraping out the vanilla bean?
Yeah, I wouldn't bother cooking it. Yeah, just split that vanilla bean the long way and scrape some of it out. And that's actually
Probably better.
much more delicious than vanilla extract. Very powerful, and that's a beautiful.
Oh, I smell the chocolate now, I'm just saying.
Well, when we made these yesterday, I said to Jack, "Can't you eat them warm?" And he said he didn't see why not, but then it wouldn't be pot de crème.
It wouldn't be
Still
perfect.
it would still be delicious. That's all I
So
have to
one
say.
of the things I love about this dessert is it's a make-ahead. So really, it needs to cool on the counter and then go into the fridge for at least 4 hours to set up. But if you wrap them carefully, they can spend 3 days in the fridge. And so, not that they're going to really last for 3 days in the fridge,
But if you're planning a party, a dinner party, and you want to get the dessert out of the way, this is a really, you see how quickly it comes together.
Yeah, so this is,
That looks
we're
great.
going to, once we finish the pesto, make a garnish, but that's it for pot de
I'll
crème.
take that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, now.
We're going from sweet back to savory, but we're all
Moving
good.
right along.
Yeah, so, well, I'm going to put the pasta pot over here.
It's very hot. I just it had come to a boil, so you're all ready.
All right, I'll put the lid back on right over here. Just want to make sure when we want to cook the pasta that we've got
That's right, but it's
hot
ready.
water. Let me put the lid on. All right. In the spirit of let's use what's available, we have a great recipe for kale, sunflower seed pesto.
Lovely.
And it's super flexible. So you can add, I'm going to bring over my board.
I think people typically always think of basil, but I love the idea of using a local green that we have at this time.
Yeah, and so, let's see, is that going to slide in over here?
Here, how about
Right, yeah, that's
this way? How about
very
this way?
good.
Is that good?
Yeah, thank you.
Put it that way.
Oh yeah, that would be the good way to do it. So we're gonna start with this beautiful,
Kale.
That's baby kale,
baby
right?
kale. Now, if you wanted to use grown-up kale, you'd want to take it off the stems and then chop it.
Okay.
But this is going in a food processor. I'm not going to
Right.
chop this. So this is 2.5 ounces of kale. That's once we removed the stems, but here it didn't have any stems, so I'm just using it as is. And I think if you wanted to use 100% kale, it might be a lot. It would be pretty intense from a flavor perspective. So
It depends. Have you tasted this? I mean, baby kale is sometimes very. I don't think that's bitter at all. It's like it's
actually,
sweet.
it would be
It's a very sweet and beautiful.
such good kale.
From a local farm.
This is some greenhouse baby spinach. So I've got a cup of that, and I am putting some basil in here. And so you really want to make sure that you're just using the leaves here. The rest of it's just too tough. So I put a cup of spinach and a cup of the basil. I think you could play around with this as long as you were using somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 cups of greens here. If you wanted to use parsley along with the kale, you could, especially if you just wanted to sort of reinforce the green color and the flavor, but sort of mellow it out.
I use my carrot tops and radish tops.
Oh
why
yeah,
not?
radish
Yeah.
pesto
Yeah.
is delicious.
So next innovation, sunflower seed. So these are roasted sunflower seeds. This is 1/3 of a cup. If you got raw sunflower seeds, you could toast them in a little skillet. These are a little salted as well. So I like them because any soft nut. I mean, pine nuts are really soft, but I think walnuts are great.
Walnuts are good.
Sunflower seeds are great. So I want to show you something about the garlic. So and I'm not, too much raw garlic is too much raw garlic. This recipe calls for 3 cloves, which honestly I think is too much. I mean, just saying, like, you know, love my colleagues, but it's too much. So what I did, and this is actually a tip that an old friend from America's Test Kitchen, Adam Reed, taught me, is toast the garlic, especially if you're toasting the nuts. So you can put the whole cloves here. Feel how soft that is. So this was in.
Oh, it feels like you roasted it.
Yeah, but you would do it in a skillet with the skins on over low heat until basically it's soft and blistered. 6 or 8 minutes. Then you can peel it, and you can sort of see it's almost like roasted garlic, and it gives you and it's fine. It has some color on it. You know, I could mince these, but I'm going to be lazy and just throw them in. And it really it gives you the garlic flavor, but not that sort of harsh garlic flavor. And so for pesto, especially in any recipes where if you're, you know, toasting the pine nuts or toasting the walnuts, you already have to skillet out. Why not? And mellow out.
Is this on?
No, not yet.
Should I put it on?
Yeah.
I have to tell you, between the smell of the chocolate
I know.
and it's like, oh, it's a sensory,
hungry. We
it's a
haven't eaten.
sensory delight, if you ask me.
All right, so I'm gonna get grind the stuff up, salt and pepper, and a little bit of salt and pepper, and some salt. I know. And then we're just gonna grind away, and then I'm gonna add the olive oil and the salt. And let me talk a little bit why I'm starting this way. So, olive oil in the food processor can get a little bitter, and like honestly, this is reason to do this in a mortar and pestle. But you know, I'm not really going to go there. Probably more often than not.
It's too slow.
But one of the things you can do is to add the olive oil later. And so the less time the olive oil spends in the food processor, it's really the physical action of being beaten up that basically can release some of the polyphenols that have more bitter notes to them. And so, you know, it can be, so you don't really want to put the olive oil in any longer than it has to. But we're now there. So, half a cup of extra virgin olive oil.
I'm so hungry.
Me too. I'm sure you are all hungry at home as well.
Just also add a little bit of water just to loosen it up. And there. That's enough.
Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous.
You want to scrape it into that
Yeah.
that bowl over there?
This one here, right?
Oh, this is right. And I don't think we're going to need all of it for this pound of pasta. Do you? I think that this.
All right. Well, how much do you want me to use?
I would say half of it. The recipe says it sauces 2 pounds of pasta.
So I'm going to put this into the bowl that you want to toss the pasta in, and then I'm going to. All right. So what do you think, hon? Does that look like enough?
A little more. And you can always put an extra dollop on top if we just get all of this, and then our water is ready.
That looks really good.
Pesto is done, the water is ready,
Yeah,
the
we're
pasta.
getting there.
This is amazing.
We're getting there.
All right.
All right, shall I put this
Yeah.
in?
Oh, I didn't salt the water. So, well, didn't salt the water after all that talk about salting the water.
America's Test Kitchen has shown a tablespoon.
That's right. Well, did you eyeball it? There.
I eyeballed it, but you really can't put too much water in, salt in.
salt?
Rather. I mean, the pasta's going to take.
Yeah, how long is it going to take? Minutes?
3 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not. You know what? I should set a timer. Can you give that a stir?
Yeah. It's always important when you're cooking pasta. It's most likely to stick in the first 30 seconds.
Interesting to know. Okay.
And so, you know, this is the time to make sure to stir it. Once it's sort of set and separate, I find with dried pasta maybe it's more like 2 or 3 minutes that it's in the danger zone. You know, where things can go south.
Yeah.
You know, with the fresh pasta, within 30 seconds it's separate and it's not going to stick. And so you can do a lot less.
Should I put a timer on? 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Let's try that.
Let's see.
And then why don't you finish? Did you add the cheese?
No, I didn't.
Pesto
Oh,
done?
all right. And then I'm adding the cheese offline. And then I'm going to do something else.
So you don't add your cheese into the pesto when you're making it? Oh, that's fascinating.
Well, for a couple reasons. One is I prefer to freeze it without the cheese. And so
Okay.
I just have
Right.
gotten in the habit of.
Okay, that's good. Another good tip.
I mean, last September I
We
made
have a lot of pesto in our freezer.
20 portions. I used these gigantic, large size ice cube trays, and I made enough pesto for 20 pounds of pasta. But I didn't put any cheese in it because, and then I froze them
That's
in
great.
zipper locks, and
And then you add the cheese afterwards.
and add the cheese later. And so the cheese also can get gummy in the food processor, and it's just easier. if
And
you-
what kind of cheese did you add? Parmesan? Pecorino
Reggiano.
Yeah, no, Parmesan.
Okay,
There
I'm
you
just
go.
checking. I'm just checking. Our people want to know.
All right, hon.
How does that seem to you?
Like I just blew a fuse because it's from the
Really?
induction burner, so it's gonna be cooked.
Yeah, we like it al dente.
Really? The electricity went off?
Believe that, I turned off the induction burner, but I didn't mean to. But that felt like actually perfect.
Alright. Well, that's the other thing that we noticed when we were in Italy was our al dente is different from their al dente, and even from region to region, our teacher was saying in Torino the pasta is almost crunchy when you eat it.
Oh.
So anytime you make pesto, you need to reserve way more water than you think you're
Yes, I
going to
never
need.
say that much.
Well, first is I'm going to thin it out before I add the sauce because it's just so much easier to toss if it's thinner. And a lot of recipes will just add more oil to get to this consistency, but honestly, there's enough fat in this recipe between the sunflower seeds,
Yeah,
the half
yeah,
cup
yeah.
of oil,
I
the
agree.
Parmesan, and so I add.
Do you want me to drain this?
Yeah,
in
that
the
would be
sink?
great, sweetie. So I get it to this point where it's like this consistency. Let me tilt and so you can sort of see, where it's runny. I mean, at this point, which is going to make it so much easier to toss with the pasta.
I'm right behind you.
All right.
You know what? Let's move this food processor
Yeah, that's a good idea.
behind us, and then you can toss this and serve it.
All right.
That's a lot of pasta.
We're very hungry people
All
here.
right. And all right. So you're tossing and serving.
So
And,
I'm tossing, and I'm going to need more of this water. I mean, we fight about this all the time. We don't
I
really
don't
fight
like
about
to
anything.
have a lot of water in the
I
bottom of my
always think-
pasta bowl, and we don't fight about it, but we're sort of like he's
Difference of opinions.
He's always sneaking more water into the bowl. Than,
But see, I think this is too dry. And so I think it should be more fluid, the sauce. And so I'm going to add.
So you want it really more saucy.
well,
so-
and as it sits there over the next few minutes, it will absorb a lot of
Especially
that
fresh
water.
pasta. I mean, dry pasta will absorb some sauce. Fresh pasta absorbs a lot. And so I really feel like there should be, before you start to portion it out, some moisture in the bowl, because if there's no moisture in the bowl, then it means that the pasta is going to be kind of stodgy.
It smells good.
Oh,
So
God.
while you're doing that, just a few questions because we're going to be raffling off the
Okay.
book first. Tell us a little bit about the process of making the book. How long does a book like that? Because that's a huge book.
So-
How long does a project like that take?
It was a team of a dozen designers, cooks, and editors working 18 months. That's a sort of
Wow.
standard process for us when it comes to book publishing. So, it's very slow.
And how many recipes are in a book like this? This is like,
I think it's 400 recipes. It's a lot of recipes. It's actually volume 1 of what's envisioned to be a 2-volume set, with volume 2 coming out in October.
Oh.
That's going to be the advanced fundamentals.
wow.
That's coming next.
That's
That is
coming next.
exciting. This is like a huge book filled with great recipes and more tips. More tips than you got here tonight. Anything else you'd like to share about the book, or
Well-
we're getting ready to do our raffles?
I think if actually the line on the back book is basically like my favorite line on the back of any book we've ever done.
Great cooks never stop learning. That is so true.
Isn't it? And really, that's that's been really both of our careers. That's what we've been doing. I mean, mostly separately. I mean, is learning ourselves and then helping to inspire other people and teach other people. And so, all right, sweetheart.
Here's some flaky sea salt for everybody.
What do you think?
That looks great.
I am just going to say, before we finish up, that I know I've been inspired by what I've learned. Laura, do we have any more questions to...
Yeah.
Yes? No?
We do.
Okay, let's have a few questions while we're serving up.
Okay, great. So I know that pasta is really all about gluten, and I know that I've dabbled a little bit with some gluten-free recipes in the pasta world. My question to you is that if somebody had wanted to do this version as gluten-free, do you have off the top of your head potentially what types of flour maybe somebody can use, or can they go to America's Test Kitchen and get a gluten-free pasta recipe there?
Yeah, we do have at our website a fresh pasta that's gluten-free using a gluten-free flour blend. Basically, the experience, we did 5 or 600 recipes maybe 5 or 6 years ago, really got into it, is that you cannot take a recipe that uses wheat flour and simply just put in a gluten-free flour. You have to make all these other adjustments.
Agreed.
And so we've got a ton of gluten-free recipes, including a gluten-free pasta recipe at americastestkitchen.com website.
That's good to know. I'm going to try that.
Have some, I poured you a glass. This is a wine from our neighbors at Lieb. Well, it's at Bridge Lane.
Let's show the bottle of wine. We
It's
are
a-
all big Lieb fans here.
But we can walk there from our house, so that's not the only reason we chose this wine. We picked it up as part of our wine club members shipment on Friday. It's a white Merlot, so it's very fruity, acidic, cuts through the bitterness of the kale, although this kale isn't that bitter, and I just think makes a really nice complement to the pasta. There's some flaky sea salt.
Any more questions, Laura?
So no more questions.
Okay, so I would just like to do first of all, a big thank you to Jack and Lauren, because this was amazing. I'm sorry you're all not here to smell it and eat it, because it is fabulous. Again, I want to thank you for your participation in tonight and the donations that are going to World Central Kitchen. Now, if you'd like to donate more, you can go to our website, slowfoodeastend.org, and you can find a donation button, and anyone who donates today or tomorrow, those funds will go to World Central Kitchen, and again, we will double. So far, we're at a little bit over $1,000 that we've gotten in proceeds. So that means we'll be matching that with another 1,000 or more. I'm very excited that we're able to do that. I'm really grateful to you all for participating. Save the date, April 23rd. Slow Food East End is having our first annual Earth Day celebration. We're going to be at the Sisters of St. Joseph Villa in Hampton Bays. If anything, just come to see the property. It's absolutely gorgeous. We are going to have many exhibitors. Landcraft Garden Foundation will be there, Yard Crop, ECI will be talking about composting and farming, and Relic will be there to talk about the work they do with the reseeding, the beds with oysters, and beach cleanup. At the end of the property, it's on the Shinnecock Bay, and where there's a consortium of Shinnecock women who are kelp farmers. They're going to be there. We're having some food trucks. We're having wine. It's an event that's open to everybody, so I encourage you all to come. If you're not a member, become a member. You could find out more about all our events that we do. Like us on social media, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and know about ways that you can get involved in the community, in our slow food community as well, to help make the good, clean, and fair work that we do a reality on the East End. So that being said, I'm gonna say cheers
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you all for
Thank
joining
everybody.
us, and I look forward to seeing you all in April. And again, Jack and Lauren, thank you so much. Oh, we're not going anywhere.
Oh,
wait, the raffle.
The raffle. The
Excuse me, I
raffle.
was really hungry to eat. So,
The raffle.
All right. You're picking, sweetheart. Okay.
2 winners, 2 books. Oh my gosh. Okay. Shireen Realtor? It's someone from Instagram. Okay, there you go. Shireen Realtor, somebody. Well, congratulations. We will get you the book somehow. If you're local, we'll give it to you. Drop it off. If not, we'll figure it out.
You're dropping
Okay.
on the floor.
All right, and the second one is...
Oh,
all right,
Penny Schwartz. Oh, yay. Thank you for the book.
Joy and Dan Flynn.
Yay! We love Joy and Dan Flynn. They're great supporters of now I also just have to put in a plug because Joy is also a Flower Power baker. So to all my Flower Power bakers who are on here today, thank you. Spread the word about slow food. Spread the word about Flower Power. I hope I see you all in April at Earth Day. And what can we say, Manja?
Manja.
Manja. Thank you so
Cheers.
much. We'll see you in April.